A recent UNICEF reports revealed that New Zealand has the highest child suicide rate among 36 OECD and EU countries, with a rate nearly 3 times the average. The country also ranks second highest for bullying, indicating significant challenges for child and youth mental health. Overall, our country was placed 32nd out of 36 countries for child well-being, highlighting systemic issues affecting young people. The Children's Commissioner, Dr. Claire Ahmed, emphasised the urgent need for substantial investment in child and youth mental health services, including suicide prevention and anti-bullying initiatives. She calls for a central focus on children in the upcoming budget to fulfil the government's child and youth strategy. She also stressed the importance of collecting and publishing quality data on child mortality and reducing child poverty. Joining me now is the Mental Health Foundation Suicide Media Advisor, Mark Wilson. Mark, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Leah. Nice to speak to you.
It is nice to talk with you, Mark. This latest report from UNICEF is heartbreaking. There is no one reason for why, tragically, our young people are taking their lives, I imagine, Mark. But with your experience, what do you see is going on?
Oh dear, it's a big question, Leah, and it is absolutely tragic where we sit in the world with our youth suicide stats. And, you know, it's a little bit questionable, some of the collection and how we compare international data, but let's just accept that this is a very significant public health issue here in New Zealand. I wish I knew there was one reason, and there isn't a single reason why our young people are feeling like this, are getting to the point of extreme distress, and why it might be happening more in New Zealand. I mean, we know a lot about the environmental factors that impact on young people, you know, like poor housing, lack of incomes, violence and drugs and excessive alcohol use, all those really big picture kind of issues that are affecting New Zealand. And we have that, and bullying is another thing. Here we are on Pink Shirt Day, trying to kind of raise awareness to the impact of bullying on people and on people's mental health and well-being. So, you know, these are factors, and we live in a country that is multicultural. We have Māori population, which is overrepresented in these stats as well. And as we see globally with colonized countries, the same thing happens, you know, and that is a really hard thing to turn around.
Well, Mark, I saw the UNICEF report, some of the report, and they mentioned colonisation. Now, I have to push back on this. I'm sorry. I don't think a child of today might have Māori descent wants to commit suicide through colonisation. Why is this word thrown around? What the hell does it mean?
I think it means, well, it means it's things like identifying with your culture, identifying with your language. It's a connection, and we know
fine,
that.
But I just don't see how it would make a child so depressed, or to the point they want to kill themselves.
These are kind of well understood, kind of intergenerational traumas. They're one of the many things that are impacting on Māori young people, and I think it's an important thing, just as you know, households that are, you know, have power, have regular power, are warm, you know, kind of homes that are safe, and often they're not. And
that's a good point, Mark, because that's what I agree. If you're, you know, if you are struggling, a family is struggling, and poverty being, you know, struggling to get food on the table. There might be domestic violence in the house. You know, that's the pressure. I can understand why children growing up in that, it's an added pressure where they feel maybe they can't control it because they're a child, you know, and they don't get fed, and there's no power or love, or there's violence. I think that is something we really seriously in this country have a problem with, and I think that's over. It's not just Māori, but, and sadly though, their figures are bigger in that. but it's over all of, kids of all races can have that in their lives, and I think we should be focusing on that.
Yes, but we know that we've got a population group who's at a greater risk. So, and if we want to kind of develop suicide prevention plans and target specific populations that are at greater risk, because that's what the statistics tell us, that Māori youth are at greater risk, we need to be tailoring those kind of protective programs and services that are going to reach them and make a difference to them, because that is where the challenge lies. But equally, a young person from the other end of the spectrum can still suddenly take their life as well. And every life lost is a complete and utter tragedy, and it impacts on that family so much and that community so much. And I do quite a bit of work with suicide bereaved, and I hear these stories, and they're all stories of pain and heartache and kind of confusion from families, because you're often having to do this reflective thing, like what was happening in that person's life,
Mark,
and
on your
sometimes
work, I hate to ask this question, but what's the youngest child that you know of that you might have worked with the family?
It's they can be around. It's very rare. And this is the thing. It's about the focus on the whole of population is really important. I mean, you can get young people less than 10, but it's so rare. It doesn't happen that often. We're and that
is
can
typically
be
the danger age, teenage. Is that what I know that's what Mike King kind of focused on. Like the teens.
Yeah, well, the late teens, and everyone is, but as far as statistics go, it's 15 to 24 problematic years for people, and that can be a developmental thing, how we process life events. And if you've had a relationship breakup and you're a young person, that can feel literally like the end of the world to you. And it's like, how do we ensure that those people that have these kind of life experiences are able to kind of cope with those, or know where to turn to seek support? And those of us who are in their lives know, hey, well, I'm observing a behaviour change here, and what can we do? How can we support that person? Because it's a really big, complex thing. And yes, I'd love to see targeted budget spending on this sort of stuff, but it's a mix of government services as well as community services, and all of us kind of creating a world in which, young people feel some sense of belonging and connection and worth. And I know that's the big issue with this.
Sure. And I know the Children's Commissioner said that we do need serious investment in youth mental health and suicide prevention. When we're talking serious investment, and to be honest, we've heard this from every government, Mark, going back, previous governments, they all say that. And I don't know what it looks like. What do you think investment needs to be, what do you think that investment needs to go to first?